Welcome to the Eye Opener. I'm your host, Michael Lewis. At Biden's climate summit, Mexico president offered a deal to Biden to curb climate migrants. AOC relaunched the Green New Deal with a bizarre comment. Marjorie Taylor Greene is ready for a debate. The House passed a new bill which would make D.C. a state. What does it mean if the legislation is signed into law? The prolonged lockdown is having a fundamental impact on children's mental health. More parents step up to voice their concerns. Okay, my friends, let's take a closer look together. The highlight on Earth Day, April 22nd, is how would America offer citizenship or legal protection for climate migrants? Remember, in Project Veritas' CNN Expose series, CNN Director Charles Chester said climate change is going to be the next COVID because fear sells. Well, it is coming. In February, Joe Biden signed an executive order on planning for the impact of climate change on migration. Biden asked for solutions to protect and resettle migrants displaced by climate change. The Democrats continue to claim the recent migrant surge is not because of nice guy Biden and his open border policies, but climate change in Central America. Earlier this week, Secretary of State Antony Blinken reasserted it is the climate crisis that drives migration from the Northern Triangle to the United States, exhausting resources in immigration authorities at the southern border. Since Thursday, Biden's hosting his first two-day climate summit with 40 leaders from around the world, but he didn't invite any leaders from the Northern Triangle. On the first day of the summit, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador proposed a tree planting deal to combat climate change in Central America. Obrador claimed the program will curb migration, but the U.S. should grant temporary work visas and eventually American citizenship to the participants in this program. On the same day, two Democrat senators reintroduced a bill to increase protection for migrants who don't fit the definition of refugees under U.S. and international law. However, the idea faces vast challenges. For instance, if the bill is to address non-typical climate refugees, you should know natural disasters and violence are often intertwined. So where do you draw the line between regular refugees and climate refugees? If the bill is to address non-refugee migrants, why would you want non-refugees coming into this country? They're illegals. After Australia turned down two Belt and Road deals with Beijing on Wednesday, CCP leader Xi Jinping rebranded it into Green Belt and Road. Xi appeared at Biden's climate summit on Thursday morning to promote the new deal. CCP's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, offers massive yet predatory loans to developing countries, most of them in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. BRI provides infrastructure services such as building new ports, railways, and highways. The real ambition of BRI is not economics, but expanding the CCP's geopolitical influence. The CCP keeps both the profits from the projects as well as interest from the loans. These massive lending projects put partner countries into extreme debt. The CCP then leverages these debts as a diplomatic bargaining chip. On Thursday, Xi alleged that a solution to combat climate change, China will build green infrastructure in developing countries. He said, "We need to deliver social equity and justice in the cause of green transition and increase people's sense of benefit, happiness, and security. Developed countries need to increase climate ambition and action." Biden allowed Xi, a communist dictator with notorious human rights records, to promote equity and justice to the world. The CCP's deception and censorship are beyond what most Americans could comprehend because we aren't under its rule. However, from the level of hypocrisy in some politicians and corporations we've seen and the cancel culture we're experiencing today, I wonder if the CCP had also exported its tyrannical tactics to some leaders in the United States. On Earth Day Eve, radical Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez reintroduced the Green New Deal. Unfortunately, she screwed it up with her absurd comments. AOC claimed climate crisis is born of injustice. Racial injustice is a cause of climate change?
The climate crisis is a crisis born of injustice. and it is a crisis born of the pursuit of profit at any and all human and ecological cost. That's right. Which means that we must recognize in legislation that the trampling of indigenous rights is a cause of climate change. The trampling of racial justice is a cause of climate change.
The odder thing was, the two men behind AOC applauded her statements. Do they agree with her too? In the radicals' eyes, every problem is a result of racism, so is climate change. AOC also completed her 14-page paper on the Green New Deal recently. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene checked it out, and after reading the full paper, Greene is up for a debate that she claimed AOC has agreed to. Greene said if AOC doesn't show up, it proves she's no more than a scared little girl that doesn't know anything.
I told her, she asked me if I had read her 14-page Green New Deal. I said, I've read some of it. And she said, well, when you read all of it, then you can challenge me to a debate. Well, the good news is I've read all 14 little pages, and I'm very ready to debate her on the House floor. So this is what we're going to be doing. The date hasn't been set, but when it is set, I will let you know. And she better show up. If she chickens out, then she shows exactly who she really is, a scared little girl that is pretty stupid and doesn't know anything about the economy or economics. And she boasts that she does because she has a degree in economics, but she doesn't have enough common sense to actually be able to produce anything in the real world. She just has a government job.
There was also some turmoil at the Capitol on Earth Day. The House approved a bill along party lines that would make Washington, D.C. the 51st state in the nation. What does it mean that D.C. will become a state? The bill, backed by all House Democrats, would give the district 2 seats in the Senate and 1 seat in the House and a governor. Washington, D.C. overwhelmingly votes Democratic in elections. If the legislation gets signed into law, it would guarantee 2 more Democratic senators and 1 more Democratic representative in Congress. Republicans argued granting statehood to the district is unconstitutional. Even the Justice Department from President Kennedy and Obama have been consistent, and a constitutional amendment is needed to grant the district statehood. The motion is more of a power grab. Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy said before the vote, the Democrats' D.C. statehood scheme is about 2 things: consolidating power and enacting radical policies. The American people see right through this blatant power grab. Republican Representative Jody Hice smashed Democrats' claim that Washington, D.C. has no representation from the people. Hice said the district does have local representation and a delegate in the House. It also has electoral votes for the presidential election. Hice said the new bill flies in the face of what our founders intended. The founding fathers had never wanted the seat of the government to be a state, and they made it clear in framing the Constitution. But don't panic, this is actually the second time the House has approved such legislation in 2 years. It's almost impossible to advance the bill in the Senate, which requires at least 10 votes from the GOP. Even then, not all 50 Senate Democrats may back the motion. 4 Democrat senators have said they are a no vote. However, the bill has full support from Joe Biden and the White House. In 2020, D.C.'s murder rate reached a 15-year high after it had been already recognized as America's murder capital. Police staffing in D.C. have declined over the past few years, and this may be a trend happening in other blue cities as well. Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and Portland are facing a severe understaffing problem due to early retirement and few training classes because of the pandemic. Police morale is at a low nationwide amid incidents that have led to riots. In addition to the riots after George Floyd's death, Philadelphia experienced another wave of turmoil after an officer shot a black man who charged at him with a knife. But amid rising crime rates and more street unrest, the Philadelphia Police Department struggles to hire new recruits. Portland experienced riots almost every night last year. Many of its police officers left the force, citing lack of support and overworked. Los Angeles cut its police budget last year and is now understaffed. The city recently proposed a 3% increase in funding for the upcoming year due to the city's rise in crime. Before we continue, if you like our program, please hit the like button and subscribe. It'll help more people see our videos. And if you want to support the Eye Opener, please click on the Teespring link in the description to purchase Mugs That Matters. And for those who have a mug that matters, raise your cup and let's toast to free speech and, most importantly, to freedom. Salute. Many states are still under the virus lockdown. We're now seeing that this type of prolonged isolation is having a fundamental impact on people's mental health, especially on children's. The CDC reported compared to 2019, the mental health related visits for children ages 5 to 11 and 12 to 17 increased by 24% and 31% in 2020. Nevada's Clark County School District, the 5th largest in the nation, went fully remote since last year's March. By December, 18 students had committed suicide in the district, doubled compared to the year before. The surge in student suicides prompted the county board to start bringing children back to the classrooms in January. The county superintendent said, "When we started to see the uptick in children taking their lives, we knew it wasn't just the COVID numbers we need to look at anymore." Chris Buckner, a father from Cook County, Illinois, lost his 18-year-old son, Dylan, to suicide in January. Buckner now tells the story to spread awareness of teen depression and suicide, hoping to save other families struggling during the pandemic.
Dylan was a high school quarterback, making the varsity team as a sophomore, and he planned to play football in college. He and his father were going to spend last summer touring Ivy League schools. Instead, they spent it under lockdown. His parents had no idea at the time he was battling with depression.
So when we received a call from the police that Sunday night in September that Dylan had made the first attempt on his life, we thought they were calling the wrong number. We just didn't think it was possible.
Buckner warned that depression and potential suicidal thoughts in teenagers are hard for parents to see. He said with the vaccine available, it's time to change.
Suicide is an irrational, impulsive act. Your kids are not going to tell you. You're not going to see the signs. They're going to hide those signs from you. And what I think has emerged since then, as we see the impact of that lockdown on children's mental health, on the economy, on small business, we now have a vaccine for the disease. I think the measures need to appropriately change in response to that.
In Georgia, a mom blasted the school board for its 9-month mandatory mask mandate enforced on young children.
Every month I come here and I hear the same thing: social emotional health. If you truly mean that, you would end the mask requirement tonight. Tonight. This is not March 2020 anymore. We have 3 vaccines. Every adult in the state of Georgia that wants that vaccine is eligible to get it right now, and every one of us knows that young children are not affected by this virus. They're not. But it's April 15th, 2021, and it's time. Take these masks off of my child.
Standing up against authorities takes courage, but it's necessary to drive change. In Michigan, Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer has signed 130 executive orders since May 2020, imposing a series of harsh restrictions on local business and people's personal lives. The state still has a mask mandate and strict social gathering rules. For instance, indoor gatherings at residential venues is limited to 15 people. In October, a group of locals started a campaign called Unlock Michigan. The petition asked to repeal a 1945 law that allows Whitmer to govern by executive order without end and without accountability. Suffering under Whitmer's arbitrary governing during the pandemic, Unlock Michigan received great support. The petition amassed over 460,000 valid signatures, well over the 340,000 threshold needed for certification. But the fight for freedom is never easy. On Thursday, Michigan's Board of State Canvassers, which is composed of 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, deadlocked on whether or not to certify the petition. The 2 Democrats wanted to launch an investigation into whether the signatures were collected properly, despite the fact Attorney General Dana Nessel already concluded a month-long investigation into the campaign. Why are the Democrats so afraid of passing this motion? Because once the petition is certified, it'll be presented to the Republican-controlled legislature, which could easily vote to repeal the 1945 law. Whitmer would have no power to veto the repeal. Unlock Michigan may have to seek justice in the court to move forward. It can request the Michigan Supreme Court to smack down the board members who refuse to do their jobs. Up north in Canada, Ontarians declared a win in their fight for freedom. Ontario Premier Doug Ford apologized in tears on Thursday over his extreme lockdown and stay-at-home measures. Ford imposed the strictest coronavirus restriction and the longest lockdown of any North American territory. To no one's surprise, Ontario has also experienced a spike in suicides and depression. Last week, Ford's office granted police the power to stop anyone, ask why they're not at home, and demand their address. But even law enforcement didn't want to follow the new order. Ford and his cabinet faced a brutal backlash from the public. Even mainstream media spoke against their extreme decision. The public outcry forced the premier to walk back from his strict lockdown order. Ford apologized for his mistake and admitted, quote, some of those measures, especially around enforcement, they went too far. But Ontarians aren't buying the premier's tears. Someone tweeted, the tears are real, but why is he crying? For his rapidly evaporating political career? Maybe. Is he crying because he had a sheltered life and is unaccustomed to feelings of failure? Definitely. Another tweet said, I can't believe Doug Ford has the nerve to cry to try and gain our sympathy. The damage is done. And that's it for today, my friends. Check out the playlist right here for more eye-opening content. You can join me on our Eye Opener Telegram chat room and follow me on YouMaker, Gab, and Parler. All the links are in the description below. Don't forget, please sign up to our email list so that we can stay in contact with each other. Thank you all, and I'll see you next time.